Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming and listening to this speech today. First, I want to start out by asking everybody if anybody here has ever gotten a concussion or any other serious brain injury. Okay. Now, when a lot of people think about concussions, they think about just a hit to the head and then you have a headache and then you just forget about something. No big deal, right? But science has shown that these can be much more serious. Now, every kid always dreams about being in the NFL, and so did I. And I actually had a chance to play in college, but 3 games before the end of my senior year, that all changed. I suffered a concussion the third last game of my senior year, and then a month later I also was in a car crash where I went nearly 40 miles an hour headfirst into a tree. I wasn't driving. Now, I'd suffered with headaches, memory loss, normal concussion symptoms, but I was much more lucky than anybody would think. Now, any injury to the brain is serious. So throughout this speech, I'm going to give examples of players who have suffered from concussions, the science behind concussions, and the causes and effects. So one example of a player is Chris Borland. He was a 49ers linebacker who, after his rookie season, retired. He shocked everybody by retiring, and he decided that football was only a game and his life was more important. He didn't want to end up like Junior Seau. He was another linebacker who played a full career, and in 2012 he committed suicide. He died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the chest, and he actually wrote down that he decided not to shoot himself in the head so that scientists can study his brain. When they studied his brain, they found CTE. This is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Now, according to the School of Medicine at UCLA, this is a degenerative brain tissue, degeneration of brain tissue. So this means that the brain started shrinking, the tissue was wearing out. Now, this is caused by many hits to the head over a career, which happened to Seau, and it leads to dementia, aggression, confusion, and severe depression. Signs can appear as early as years or even decades after trauma. But it's not only NFL players who suffer from concussions. A local high school player at Brockton High School named Damon Janes, he was one of 8 children in 2013 who died from high school football. He never had a serious concussion, but multiple hits to the head ended up killing him during a game. Now let's go into the science behind concussions. The brain is a gelatinous material, and inside of the skull is cerebrospinal fluid, which surrounds the brain. The cerebrospinal fluid allows the brain to move around the skull. But with a violent enough hit, the brain can slide inside of the skull and actually hit the inner walls of the skull. With enough of an impact, this can injure the brain. That's what a concussion is. So according to the Mayo Clinic, there are 3 main causes of concussions. 1 being car accidents, 2 being accidental trip or fall, and the 3rd being participating in sports such as football, rugby, boxing, anything that involves hits to the head. When a concussion occurs, there's a chemical balance disrupted inside the brain. The brain can bruise or swell depending on where it was hit and how severe the hit was. And where the brain was hit, there could be possible nerve damage or even tearing of blood vessels, which would result in pooling of blood in the brain, which is very dangerous. According to many studies, including the one I read off of UB Concussion Clinic, shows that prior concussions can actually lower the threshold for future hits, so that means you have a better chance of getting a concussion later if you've already had one. It also increases the severity of symptoms. Now, on the topic of symptoms, the symptoms of concussions can last for days, weeks, and even longer depending on the severity of the hit. Most common is headaches, and then also amnesia or confusion. Other symptoms include concentration problems, sensitivity to light, sleep problems, and depression. I've suffered from many of those when I had my concussion. Now, there's another thing called second impact syndrome, and this is what I could have had and what Damon Janes did have. This is when you have a concussion that wasn't fully healed, and then you get another one. This is very dangerous, And according to Dr. Michael Turner, a neurosurgeon in Indianapolis, he gives it a 90% mortality rate. It's an extremely dangerous disease that 90% of people die from. And I could have had that, so it's a pretty scary thing. Now, with treatment of concussion, there is no known treatment. The brain is too complex to treat a concussion. The only treatment that they have is to rest and also let the injury heal. And this also includes preventing re-injury, so you don't get any second impact syndrome. Also, avoiding drugs is important, including painkillers while you have the concussion, because this can prolong the injury process and the healing process. So, now that you know all this, you know that the brain is the most essential organ in the body, you know that any hit to the head should be taken serious. I've given you examples of people with concussions, the science of concussions, and you know how severe they can be now. So you know that no brain injury should be taken lightly. So thank you for coming, and I hope you learned something today.
Job well done, Tom. Job well done.